Hi, folks. We're back again for day 2 of our culture section where we are looking at ancient wisdom, indigenous farming secrets. Mike, have you ever had the desire to plant a little garden and raise your own plants at any point in your life?
Not particularly. My wife and I, we maintain a little herb garden.
Nice.
So that's kind of nice, but that's basically on our window ledge. I wouldn't call it a garden, really. It's just a collection of pots on a window ledge. I think it would be kind of nice. And back in Canada as a kid, we had a backyard and we could plant our own fruit and vegetables, and we could make we made rhubarb pie out of the rhubarb, and we had beans and other things, chives. That was nice. But I'm not really much of a farmer. I don't have much of a green thumb or green fingers, as they say. I'm not a greatly skilled gardener. But, often in the world these days when we're facing, pandemics or environmental collapse, there is part of me that wants to move to the countryside and grow my own farm, grow my own food and raise my own chickens and just wait for the end of civilization. But I think I'll be stuck in the cities like most people.
You just want your books. You're not fooling me. You want to be around the books.
What about you?
Yeah, I've always wanted to. It sounds kind of idealistic, but my husband grew up with his own farm in his backyard, a little garden plot in his backyard, and they took care of it. And he said, it's a lot of work. It's not, it's not a simple thing to take care of. But I've always kind of idealized the concept of, like you said, like moving to the farm and raising some animals and having a piece of land that I farm.
But it is very, very hard work.
Labor intensive, right?
We have to admit that over the last 300 years in human civilization, people have left farms and moved to cities. And part of the reason is because being a farmer is really, really hard work. And I think it's probably harder now than it used to be. The amount of money that they make is not much, and it's an expensive business to be in, too.
And ironically, it feeds the world. Yeah. You have to have somebody be the farmers of the world in order for us to have food to eat.
That's right. Farmers, teachers, people who actually do things and help the, human civilization continue on, they deserve more.
Yeah, luckily we have some farming secrets. Let's get into our article and listen to it one time now, and then we will figure out what the farming secrets are for today.
Ancient Wisdom, Indigenous Farming Secrets. On the other side of the world, many North American tribes, including the Iroquois and Cherokee, developed the Three Sisters farming system. This method involves planting corn, beans, and squash together in the same plot. Each crop plays a unique and crucial role in supporting the others. Corn stalks grow tall and strong, acting as natural poles for bean vines to climb toward the sunlight. Beans absorb nitrogen from the air and convert it into fertilizer that enriches the soil for all three plants. In the meantime, squash spreads across the ground, helping to retain moisture in the soil and prevent weeds from taking root. The Three Sisters farming system provides both environmental and cultural value. It naturally maintains soil fertility, prevents erosion, and reduces the need for chemicals. Beyond these practical benefits, the system symbolizes harmony and cooperation in indigenous cultures. Different crops work together to help one another grow, just like members of a strong, supportive society. Moreover, the Three Sisters farming system shows a profound regard for the land and the conviction that humans should live in balance with nature. Rather than dominating or exploiting the environment, Indigenous farmers functioned as partners with natural processes, creating sustainable relationships that could continue for generations. The Amis tribe's shifting cultivation and the Three Sisters farming system may seem traditional and primitive, but they offer potential solutions to modern agriculture. Owing to overuse and pollution, issues like soil damage and food insecurity have become urgent global concerns. As we face growing environmental challenges, learning from indigenous wisdom is more significant than ever. By integrating these methods with contemporary scientific understanding, we can build a better agricultural future.
So we start out today saying, on the other side of the world. So if you remember, yesterday we were in Taiwan talking about the Amis people, but on the other side of the world, so 12 hours time difference in different parts to 14, 15 hours time difference in other parts Many North American tribes, so tribes that live in North America, including the Iroquois or Iroquois, depending on how you want to say it, and Cherokee, developed the Three Sisters farming system. So just a little note, Iroquois are they're a band, a confederation of nations, including that are around the New York area, and they've been nicknamed also the Five Nations or the Six Nations over different periods. They've been around for hundreds, if not thousands, of years. They have included in their group of 5 to 6 the Mohawk, the Seneca, and the Oneida, depending on how you say it, if you've heard of those groups at all, and the Cherokee, which are another group of tribes with 3 major tribes in their group, I believe, in southeastern U.S., North Carolina, Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, South Carolina, kind of big swatches of land all in that area where you will find the Cherokee people. And they have also developed a method called the Three Sisters farming system. So yesterday we were talking about the crop rotation, or the method where you shift cultivation, rotational farming. And today we've got the Three Sisters farming method. This method involves planting corn, beans, and squash together in the same plot. So the Three Sisters, kind of like the Chinese concept of planting different trees in groups of threes as well. So corn, beans, and squash. Squash being a kind of a melon, a little bit like a pumpkin. It's more a vegetable than a fruit, and it's something very, very popular in North America, and very, very yummy as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, often eaten traditionally on Thanksgiving. I think squash is a popular side dish when you have lots of different meals. And corn, beans, and squash, those are the Three Sisters. I love that. That's pretty cool. And actually, this is really interesting. It says each crop plays a unique and crucial role in supporting the others. So like 3 sisters in a family, well, not always, but ideally, these 3 crops all have their own unique elements, but they all work together to make each one even better. So a unique, a special, and crucial. Something crucial is essential. It's very, very important. In fact, it's more than that. It's absolutely necessary. Oxygen, water, and food are crucial to supporting human life, you could say. Or it's crucial you have your passport if you're planning to fly to Japan. You can't do it without that thing. So they're crucial. They really need each other. It says corn stalks, right? Everyone knows that corn grows on these long things. And we call that sort of the strong part of a plant a stalk. If it's the wooden part of a tree, we would call it a trunk. But if it's the tall, sort of thicker, stronger part of a green plant that grows up out of the ground and the leaves come off the sides and the flower sits on the top, that's either the stalk or the stem if it's a little bit thinner too. So corn stalks, or generally corn plants, they grow tall and strong, acting as natural pulls for the second sister, bean vines, to climb toward the sunlight. How cool is that?
Very cool.
So beans, like tomatoes and certain other plants, they grow in vines. They kind of grow in these plants that keep climbing, keep going up, and they can actually twist themselves around poles and sticks and bushes and trees, even small trees, as they grow upwards, reaching towards the sunlight. And so you have the corn, and that kind of acts as the poles that a gardener might, put into the ground in their garden, poles that allow the bean or the tomato vines or whatever to kind of twist around and climb up. Well, the corn serves that purpose as the corn continues to grow itself. So there you have these 2 plants kind of helping each other out. And then it says beans, so that's the second sister, absorb nitrogen from the air and convert it into fertilizer that enriches the soil for all 3 plants. So the beans are helping to provide, healthier and sort of richer fuel in the form of soil by converting nitrogen from the air. Right? Of course, there's a lot of nitrogen in our air. They convert that, or they change the nitrogen into fertilizer. Something from the air becomes something that goes into the ground, and once in the ground or in the soil, in the dirt or the ground that the plants are growing in, that enriches it or makes it healthier and better for the plants. And then the third sister, it says, in the meantime, while all of that is going on, meantime is a great word to use when talking about a story or telling a story. where a few different things were happening at the same time, right? So I was rushing around my house packing my bag. In the meantime, as I was doing that, in other words, the taxi driver was calling me saying, "Where are you? Do you want me to wait?" So, there's two things happening in my story at the same time. I'm rushing around, the taxi driver is worried, and, it kind of adds to the stress of the story or, shows you that a lot of busy things are taking place. Well, here a lot of healthy things are taking place. So, as the beans are creating nitrogen for the soil, what's the squash doing? So at the same time that the corn and the beans are helping each other out, the squash spreads across the ground. Squash, like potatoes or pumpkins or melons, they grow on the ground, okay? They don't grow on plants. Imagine having a squash fall off a tree and land on your head. Ouch. So luckily, squash, those really big types of melons and gourds, they grow on the ground. They spread across the ground. The leaves, they kind of actually have little vines, but the vines kind of just stretch out like a blanket across the ground with their leaves, and that helps to retain moisture in the soil. It keeps the water in the soil. So if it rains, with all of those plants and different parts of the squash plant covering the soil, it covers up the ground a little bit, stops the water from the soil from drying out so quickly, and it also prevents weeds from taking root. So any weed seeds or pollen or whatever that might land there, weeds being plants that can grow in your land. And if you're a gardener or a farmer, the weeds will be taking nutrients out of the land that you don't want them to take out. They'll be squeezing the other plants out. Weeds are generally unwanted plants from a gardening or a farming perspective. Some weeds can be very useful and beautiful, but for a farmer or a gardener, weeds are like unwanted guests or unwanted visitors. So you don't want the weeds to take root or to start to grow. And so all three of these plants are working together to make the soil and the land and the growing conditions much better.
Someone we do want to take root and help our brains grow is our Chinese teacher. Let's listen now.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们昨天带大家看了阿美族的轮耕制度，真的是很厉害耶，直接土地做休耕，让土壤恢复，就不会伤害到地球。好，那我们今天来看哪一个原住民的自然农耕术呢？我们到地球的另外一端，有很多的北美部落啊，都发展这样子的一个做法。好，那这个叫做三姐妹农法，这个关键词呢，就出现在第一段的第一句，最后句尾的地方 The Three Sisters Farming System。那这样子的一种系统是怎么样的系统？所谓的三姐妹又是哪三姐妹呢？第一段第二句告诉我们，这个方法其实就是把玉米、豆类还有南瓜一起种植在同一块土地上。这个叫做三姐妹哦。不过在这句话啊，也就是第一段第二句当中，动词这里的 involve， 请把它抓出来。involve 我们第一次背它的时候是说使牵扯、使摄入，对不对？好像是跟什么有关的意思。但其实 involve 还有 contain， 有包含什么内容的意思。比如说在这里所谓的这个方法 this method， 包含的就是把三种东西种在一起。而第三种东西我们看到的南瓜，南瓜不是叫 pumpkin 吗？我们万圣节的时候都会来磕南瓜做 jack-o'-lantern， 可是在这里的 squash 它是比较植物学观点称南瓜的意思。南瓜有很多很多不同的 species 品种，那我们以烹饪的角度来看，南瓜叫 pumpkin， 可是以植物学的观点来看叫做 squash。好，那么每一种作物呢都是非常独特，而且也非常关键在整个的方法当中。所以接下来我们来看到第三句当中的 unique 跟 crucial 这两个形容词就很特别了，很独特哦，而且非常的关键。关键这个字就是缺它不行啦， crucial 缺一不可。例如说第四句我们看到的 corn， 玉米有什么样的关键呢？因为玉米杆长得又高又壮，就可以让豆类可以攀藤爬向阳光的天然支柱。第四句这边有一个 and 省略的分词构句哦，在第四句当中，第一个动词是 grow 成长，逗点之后的 act as 本来应该是作为什么样的身份作为，但是因为呢同时主词就是所谓的玉米杆嘛 corn stalks， 所以 and 省略啦，直接把动词的 act 变成动词 ing， 这样就可以达到言简意赅，然后有一种顺畅的这种感觉。好，接下来我们看第五句讲豆类哦。 豆类这边有一个限定用法的关系子句。豆类为什么很重要？因为它可以从空气当中吸收氮气，那它的根部呢就会在土壤当中释放氮气。氮是什么呢？氮就是植物很天然的一种肥料。所以第5句当中，我们这边来看到的是 fertilizer， 后面的 fertilizer 肥料，后面 that 一直到句尾可以左右括号哦，这边是限定用法关系子句。那这个肥料如何呢？肥料就是可以把这3种植物的土壤都可以丰富的那种肥料，限定那一种 fertilizer。 好，但同时之间，南瓜在地面上蔓延的时候就可以保持土壤水分防止杂草的生根。逗点之后的 helping 我们先还原，它是非限定用法关系子句的简化，省略的是 which 跟原本句子当中 helps。 好，这里的 which 特别注意一下，我们之前曾经有讲过，逗点之后的 which 可能会代替前面的整句话哦，所以我们前面 in the meantime 或者是逗点之后的 squash 这个地方一直到 ground 我们整个用中括号，其实逗点之后的 which 指的是在地面上攀爬蔓延的这种状况， which helps 就可以帮助土壤水分保持住，而且可以防止杂草生根。我们一样是透过文意的推断逗点之后的 which 代替的是逗点前面的整句话。
All right, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back. All right, so we've talked about what the 3 sisters are and how the 3 sisters help each other out. And now we're going to look at it a little bit more. It says, the 3 sisters farming system provides both environmental and cultural value. It naturally maintains soil fertility, prevents erosion, and reduces the need for chemicals. So it maintains naturally, without any chemicals, soil fertility. It keeps the soil fertile. It keeps it growing well because the nutrients from the 3 different plants keep adding to the soil. They keep enriching the soil and giving the soil what it needs to keep producing more and more and more harvests of these different crops, right? So that is a fertile soil, and you maintain the soil fertility by what? Well, by planting these 3 sisters together. A lot of times when we talk about fertility, we're talking about a woman wanting to get pregnant, and if she's having problems with that, we'll talk about infertility. But when we're talking about a field that is fertility in a field, we'll talk about it being fertile, or we'll talk about it being barren. You can also say that a woman is barren, but I think these days it actually is a little bit hurtful to say that, so we don't really ever say that. You can also prevent erosion, which would happen if those squash plants were not holding the soil together. The soil might be drying out. It's keeping the moisture there. It's holding the soil together. Otherwise, the soil might dry out, and then if the rains come, it might just wash away, and that's erosion. It would just wash it away. And it reduces the need for chemicals. So those are 3 great things that the 3 Sisters method does for planting crops. Beyond these practical benefits, beyond those basic things that you need to have, the system symbolizes harmony and cooperation in indigenous cultures. Symbolizes means to stand for, or can be seen as a sign that shows. A lot of times when we talk about symbolizing things, we talk about like the 5 rings of the Olympics, symbolizing community, symbolizing all the different cultures of the world coming together. So something as simple as a ring can symbolize a global concept like working together or competing in sports together, good sportsmanship. Here we're saying that these 3 sisters symbolize harmony and cooperation in indigenous cultures. Harmony means a working together with a good balance where everything is kind of going in a good direction, and being able to work with other people or work with the earth as the people work with the earth. And the cooperation kind of mentions that harmony as well. It's working together within these indigenous cultures. So the different crops work together to help one another grow, as you mentioned earlier, Mike, just like members of a strong, supportive society. Supportive here means that it's giving support, almost like if a mother were holding her baby in her arms, she's supporting her baby in her arms, holding each other. Supportive can also mean saying good things to one another or doing good deeds to help one another move forward in a positive way.
Absolutely. It's all nice when we work together to make everything better for everyone. Moreover, it says, in addition, the Three Sisters farming system shows a profound regard for the land and the conviction that humans should live in balance with nature. That is absolutely one of those things that Native Americans long held to be true, that humans are just part of the natural ecosystem. We're not the masters of it. It's not there for our use. We are there to use it, and it is there to benefit us as much as we benefit it. So they have a profound or a very deep and meaningful regard. If something is profound, yeah, it means a lot. It's deep. It's powerful. If someone apologizes you and talks about their profound regret or their profound apologies, it's like my deep apologies. I'm really, really, really sorry. So they have a lot of regard and respect for the land, okay? So it's not just, I try not to pollute, but here's a plastic bottle and I'm going to throw it out the window. No, it's talking about doing everything you possibly can to keep nature as healthy as possible for this generation and for future generations. So they have a profound regard or respect for the land, a deep respect, and a conviction. A strongly held belief is a conviction. When you talk about your convictions, you might talk about, I believe that the death penalty is absolutely wrong and should be never be used in any situation. And someone might say, well, what if someone murdered your family member? You'd say, well, that would be tough, but I still think it's the wrong thing to do. It's a conviction. Our religious beliefs, our moral beliefs, things like that can be our convictions, right? No matter how much you try to change my mind, I'm not going to change my mind. It's like a personal rule or belief of mine that can never be changed. That's a conviction. And the Native Americans had this conviction that humans should live in balance with nature. They relied on nature to stay alive. And so they thought that, of course, damaging nature and being greedy and wasteful and things like that is going to have negative consequences. And I think they were kind of right in many ways. Look at how much we've sort of dominated and exploited the earth, and look how, sort of unhealthy the earth is these days. So there is definitely a point there. Rather than dominating or exploiting the environment, indigenous farmers function as partners with natural processes. They were stewards of the land rather than users of the land. They functioned as partners with natural processes, helping the earth stay healthy and do its healthy thing for future generations, as it says, creating sustainable relationships that could continue for generations, not just thinking about what's good for me. It's more thinking about what's good for us, and us for them meant children in the future that you would never, ever meet.
And the Amis tribe's shifting cultivation, as well as the Three Sisters farming system. If you look at those systems, you might say, well, they seem kind of traditional. It's something that our grandparents would have done. It's something our great-great-grandfathers would have done. It's kind of old school in a way of like, we don't want to do that anymore these days. And they might be seen as primitive, as in simple, super, super simple, not complicated, not complex enough for a modern society where you can get more and more and more out of the soil. But at the same time, they offer potential possible solutions to modern agriculture. So if modern agriculture is focused on getting the most crop harvest out of the smallest piece of soil, well, the indigenous peoples were thinking about how do we maintain this over many, many generations so we always get these great harvests. It doesn't have to be the biggest in one time, but over 100 years, we get 5,000 times as many vegetables if we take care of our land. Owing to overuse and pollution, issues like soil damage, that's the erosion we were talking about, or when the soil becomes, barren and you can't really use that field anymore, soil damage and food insecurity have become urgent global concerns. Food insecurity is what we talk about when a society does not have access to certain foods, maybe in the grocery stores, or the crops are not grown, or things are not coming in so that there is enough food for a society to survive on. And then there's food insecurity. People are unsure if they're going to continue to have meals to survive off of, if the land is going to continue to provide the food they need to survive. And this is definitely something that has become an urgent global concern, something that is really important for all over the world, not just one small space.
Yes, because of course we all live on the same earth. And until Elon Musk tells us we're going to stay here, we're not moving to Mars anytime soon. As we face growing environmental challenges, learning from indigenous wisdom is more significant than ever. Absolutely true. We're facing environmental challenges that are growing, that are getting bigger and more challenging, more difficult to solve. Of course, global warming doesn't seem to be slowing down. So learning from indigenous wisdom is more significant and possibly helpful than ever. Sure, science is wonderful and science can teach us a lot, but we can also learn a lot by studying what people have been doing successfully on the earth for thousands of years. By integrating these methods, the old methods, the ones we've talked about today and yesterday, by integrating or combining these methods with contemporary or modern scientific understanding, we can build a better agricultural future. Absolutely. Take the ancient wisdom, marry that with the best in modern cutting-edge science, and we'll come up with modern wisdom that is even more useful and has also been backed up by scientific research and stuff. Contemporary, yes, means of the time that you live in. So contemporary music is music of this time. The music of this time is different from the contemporary music of the 1960s or 1940s or 1920s. But for the people living at that time, that was the modern music. So contemporary just means modern at the time that you are talking about. What is contemporary for you might be history for people in the future.
Let's listen to somebody who always has a contemporary look on things. Our Chinese teacher.
当然这个三姐妹农法就很重要啊，而且其实它对环境有很多的这个重要性 value， 文化上面也是诶。在第二段第一句这个地方，我们看到的是 environmental and cultural value。 怎么说呢？因为这种方法其实能够自然的维持住土壤的肥沃，防止侵蚀，而且还减少一些化学物质的需求，也就是所谓的农药杀虫剂。但除了这些实际的好处之外，更重要的是原住民文化当中啊，就像这个农法一样，其实大家是很和谐，可以一起合作的。所以在第二段当中的第三句，我们要把关键字抓出来，大家可以和谐的相处，人跟自然和谐相处，部落当中的和谐相处 harmony， 大家可以互相的合作，你的优点你或者是你的长处呢，可能会替我们带来什么样的好处，所以我也可以贡献一些，这个叫做 cooperate。 我们看到的是名词 cooperation， 合作。所以当然不同的作物当中啊，就共同努力，大家彼此来互相成长。所以三姐妹这种农法其实是对土地深刻有一种敬重，而且人类跟大自然呢也应该要和平共存。我们同样在第二段看到第五句这个地方，第五句 profound 这个形容词之后有一个 regard 这个字其实在这里就不是什么有关哦，而是尊敬的意思。尊敬啊，或者是很钦佩 admiration 的这种感觉，我们可以用 regard for the land， 对土地深刻的一种敬重。所以其实原住民他们并不是要主宰或者是剥削环境，这些原住民的农民他跟自然来合作，创造出了延续世代的这种关系。好，最后面我们来做个结尾咯。当然阿美族的轮耕制度啊，或者是三姐妹农法，好像看起来很传统很原始。第三段第一句逗点前面的 primitive 要把它抓出来。这个原始有一开始，或者是所谓像我们看到很古早的那个意思，但是其实他们却为现代的农业提供了解决方案哦。好，所以我们昨天跟今天带大家看了自然农耕术，或许我们在所有的做法上都应该要想到 harmony cooperation。 以上是我们今天内容，我是安娜，我们下次见。
All right, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed our article, our 2-day article on culture, learned something about farming, got interested in farming, learned why maybe in the future, if you farm, you want to think about some of these traditional methods of farming. I find it really fascinating. For English Digest, I'm Leah.
I'm Mike.
Bye-bye.
Take care.